Check 1, 2. And with my apologies, it'll just be 1 or 2 more minutes. Okay, well, my system is getting ready here. We can get underway. Welcome, everyone, to the 56th meeting of the Planning and Housing Committee. I want to acknowledge that Ottawa is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, whose culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. Clerk, may I get a roll call, please?
Councillor Brockington? Councillor Curry?
Here.
Councillor Dudas?
Councillor
Councillor Johnson?
Here.
Councillor Kavanagh?
Present.
Councillor Kelly?
Present.
Councillor Kitts?
Here.
Councillor Lowe?
Present.
Councillor Tierney? Councillor Troster?
Here.
Vice Chair Gower?
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much, Kelly. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 4.1 and 5.1 to 5.6 on today's agenda. For the items just mentioned, only those who are specifically identified in the Planning Act who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if Council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of receipt of the application for a zoning bylaw amendment and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council on November 12th, 2025, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. Are there any declarations of interest? I believe there is one to be declared. Councillor Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In accordance with sections 5, 5.1, and 6 of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, RSO 1990, as amended, I, Kathy Curry, declare a potential deemed direct pecuniary interest on the following item. Official plan amendment to extend the urban boundary to include the South March Urban Expansion Area Boundary, file 0101240025, as I own property adjacent to the proposed expansion area.
Thank you very much, Councillor Curry. Are there any other declarations of interest? No. Are the minutes of our 55th meeting, October 15th, 2025 confirmed?
Confirmed.
Thank you. So on the agenda today, we'll hear the item that was deferred on 3055 Richmond Road. There is a delegation. We'll get a presentation on that one. And then to be heard together, there is the official plan amendments for 4497A and 4497B O'Keefe Court, along with the South March Urban Expansion Area. We'll have a presentation, a single presentation on both those items from city staff. And it looks like there are some presentations both from applicant, and it looks like there is one delegation who is a non-applicant as well. So we'll hold that item. At 1440 Blair Towers Place, we can get a presentation if members wish it. There are no delegations. We didn't receive any correspondence on the item. Did members wish to receive the presentation? I do not see that interest. To the applicant's team, if committee is prepared to carry this, do you still wish to speak?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we don't need to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, is this item carried? Thank you. For the item at 6615 and 6635 Renault Road, a zoning bylaw amendment, we hadn't anticipated the presentation. There are no delegations. We haven't received any correspondence on it. Did members wish to receive the presentation? I see no interest in that. To the applicant team at Richcraft, are they online? Feroz? There's no registered speaker from the applicant. Members, is that item carried? Thank you.
Carried.
For the item 5.5, the zoning bylaw amendment at 708, 720, and 750 River Road, there are no delegations and no correspondence. Did members wish to receive a presentation on this one? No. Vincent at Urbandale, if committee is prepared to carry this, did you still wish to speak? Oh, thanks. Sorry, Vince. Okay, members, is this item carried? Thank you. For the zoning omnibus amendments for Q4 2025, staff are prepared to make a presentation, but we don't have any delegations. We did receive some correspondence on the item. Did members wish to receive a presentation on the zoning omnibus? I don't see that interest. So is this item carried? Thank you. And just to give us the heads up, there are a couple of IPDs on today's agenda. There's the housing approvals dashboard for Q1 and Q2 2025, as well as the provincial proposed updates to the projection methodology guidelines to support the implementation of the provincial policy statement 2024. I hadn't heard that anyone wanted to lift those items for consideration. Is that still the case? Okay. Can we carry those now or receive those now? Thank you. So let's go back to the start of the agenda with our first held item, which is item 4.1, the zoning bylaw amendment for 3055 Richmond Road. Let us launch into the presentation. Good morning, Amanda. Whenever you're ready, we're in your hands.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of committee. My name is Amanda Davidson, and I'm here before you today to present the staff recommendation for a zoning bylaw amendment application for 3055 Richmond Road. Next slide, please. The subject site is located within Ward 7 Bay on the north side of Richmond Road, east of Bayshore Drive and Ridge Valley Drive, and west of Du Maurier Avenue. Surrounding land uses consist of low-rise residential, and further west of the site is the Bayshore Shopping Center and Transit Station. Next slide, please. Under the city's official plan in Schedule B3, the site is located within the outer urban transect and is designated Main Street Corridor. The site is located within 1 kilometer of the Bayshore Transit Station, as noted, and is also an O train station as per Schedule B3. Next slide, please. The proposal is for a mid-rise 5-story apartment building with 21 dwelling units and is subject to a concurrent site plan control application. It is noted that the proposal is considered 5 stories due to the change in grade on the property to the rear and the zoning bylaw definitions such that the underground parking level is considered a story. The proposal includes 9 resident parking spaces located within the underground parking garage. The proposal also provides 26 bicycle parking spaces in both internal and external locations. The front and rear yard consist of soft landscaping with a proposed amenity area in the rear yard. And driveway access to the underground garage is located along the west side of the property. The proposal was originally submitted for an apartment building with 16 units, 10 resident parking spaces, and 1 visitor parking space, with the parking provided in a surface lot in the rear yard with some spaces beneath the building. The application was revised with changes to increase the unit count, expand the building footprint towards the rear, reduce and relocate the proposed parking entirely to the underground garage, and the rear yard parking area has been replaced with soft landscaping in the current proposal. Next slide, please. Regarding the rezoning, the site is currently zoned residential first density, subzone GG. The zoning amendment seeks to rezone the lands to residential fifth density, subzone B, with a maximum height of 16 meters and a special exception to permit the proposed mid-rise apartment dwelling with site-specific zoning provisions. The R5B exception would establish a resident parking rate of 0.4 spaces per residential unit, remove the minimum requirement for visitor parking, permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters, and permit a maximum driveway width of 6 meters intended to accommodate a portion of the driveway as a lay-by. Next slide, please. Staff recommend approval of the application. The proposal conforms with the official plan direction for Main Street corridors, which envisions a more urban built form with heights between 2 and 40 stories subject to transition policies. As noted, the proposed built form is considered mid-rise, but has a generally low-rise appearance from Richmond Road and provides for transition through a step back at the rear. The retention of mature trees at the rear will also provide screening to adjacent properties. Further, the proposal provides for additional housing options in close proximity to transit. The site is located within approximately 1 kilometer of a transit station, which is also a future O-train station. The site is currently well serviced by existing transit routes with connection through Bayshore. And staff consider the reduced parking appropriate given the transit context and future O-train connectivity, and also consider that it conforms with the official plan policy that states minimum parking may be reduced along corridors. Further, the reduced parking allows for additional retention of landscape area in the rear, which provides for screening through tree retention and new planting. And specific design and servicing details will continue to be addressed through the concurrent site plan control process. That concludes the staff presentation. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions of staff, there is a public delegation. Ibrahim Saad. Ibrahim, are you online? Okay. All right, Ibrahim, you are now online. Your mic is muted, but if you unmute yourself, you'll be able to take 5 minutes and address the committee.
Hello.
Good morning. We can hear you. Please,
Good morning,
please proceed
everyone.
with your presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you and are ready to hear your presentation.
Good morning. I've been living in Ottawa for the past 33 years, and I used to live in a high-rise building or mid-rise. Anyway, I moved into this area just because it's a nice area. The view from the building is very nice. But however, I moved into this area because it's a housing and it's a nice green space. And it's very quiet. On the weekend, it's like you live in a country. There is no noise, nothing. And now this proposal is gonna, I know it's same thing as it happened on 3055, sorry. 3051, they created like a big building in there. And what happened because of during the construction, what's happened, it was very noisy, lots of distraction, like people work from home, and it was a lot of pollution during construction phase and more traffic, especially because of the blockage that has been on Haven Reed. Like we have a back street called Haven Reed. There's a blockage. I don't know why in there you can't go in. And by erecting this building, it's gonna limit the green space and it's gonna put more stress on the infrastructure, decrease our property value. As I mentioned in my notes, there is noise and distraction from working and the noise is going to be created even after, especially when there is snow on the road. And with this dwelling going to 0.6, as you mentioned, 6 meter in width, when you're going to put the snow, it's going to jam. And going down the road towards east on Richmond Road, every time a car wanted to turn left, if there is a school bus or there is a traffic, it takes a long time to go in. So you can imagine if somebody is delivering something to that building, they're going to be sitting on a fire lane. And if somebody's trying to go out and somebody trying to go in, probably the traffic going to be up to Kanata. Plus, this building is going to invade our privacy. Like, it's going to be so high and it's going to block the sun. And I don't understand, like everyone in Ottawa, at least they have 2 cars per household. How are they going to propose, like they even decrease the number of those parking spots? And they're saying no visitor parking. If delivery guys, like everybody use DoorDash and like all those company to deliver food, what so on, and deliver mails or whatever, how are they going to go in and out? It's a very big problem. Plus, on a holiday, it's going to be a crisis, because already on a holiday, you can see the traffic jam going up to almost Carling and down to about Bell's Corner. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibrahim. There is a question for you from Councillor Kavanaugh.
Sure.
Hi, Mr. Saad. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Thank you.
Just so you know, the street you're talking about, Richmond Road, is going to be redone. It's going to be totally revitalized. And so the concerns that you've raised, these are things that I'll raise with the project manager for the road, because these changes are, we need to be considerate of the fact there could be more traffic. But there's going to be a complete street on Richmond Road. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's been in the works for a long time, should have been done by now, but it's coming. And it means that there's going to be cycle lanes, and the road is going to be completely repaved. First, they're going to do a lot of infrastructure work. So hopefully that helps with the traffic concerns that you've raised. And I can imagine that everyone is concerned about traffic, but obviously there's less traffic when there's less cars, which is, this site is not applying for cars, much parking. So I don't know if there's any other concerns that you'd like me to raise with the applicant.
Yeah, like you're saying, there is no cars. Like I know less cars, but I think everybody is going to be parking on Belleville, and they're going to be parking on Du Maurier to go in that building, because they're going to have at least 2 cars per household. Plus, when they did the road, when they did the adjacent building there, they did the crappy work, and every time like a mid-size or bigger truck pass by, the whole neighborhood shake. It's not just my house. Everybody's house on this side is gonna be shaken. Unless you're gonna widen the street, it's gonna create more traffic. And even if you widen it, like I said, it's not gonna resolve the traffic problem.
Actually, it's not going to be widened. It's going to actually just be the same, but it's going to have wider sidewalks and bike lanes. But anyway, I'm going to raise your concerns with city staff and the applicant to address your concerns that you've raised. And thank you very much for taking the time to come out.
Thank you. And I hope you raise the other concern as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Appreciate your intervention today. Does the applicant still wish to speak? Sure, please. Good morning, Nadia. When you're ready, you'll have
Good morning,
5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, members of committee. My name is Nadia DeSanti. I'm a practice lead with WSP Canada, Inc. Just to With respect to the building height, I just wanted to remind committee that the official plan does allow mid-rise, even higher buildings in this designation, as well as on the Main Street corridor. So the proposed development is in conformity with the official plan policies for this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Councillor Kavanaugh?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you for being present today. You heard the concerns of a local resident in terms of the parking and worrying about cars parking on other streets. One of the points I raised was the possibility of having any kind of a car share because of the lack of parking.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a car share parking space proposed as part of the overall parking spaces for this development.
Okay, I think that will help quite a bit.
Mhm.
And as I've mentioned, the street will be totally rejuvenated very shortly. There was other concerns that they had is in terms of green space on the property, which is the private property.
So through you, Mr. Chair, there is green space landscaping is proposed. We have also accommodated the front yard has a lay-by for any deliveries. We've maintained the 6.1 meter easement on the west side, which is a city easement. So we've maximized the landscaping as much as we can, given the site configuration and site constraints.
Thank you. So you've allowed for delivery because there's no visitor parking. So that was a concern that was raised.
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Sante, I don't see any further questions for you. Appreciate your intervention today. So we will move on. I have been remiss in getting what I think is a relatively minor technical amendment on the table. Vice Chair? Oh, Councillor Kavanaugh, sorry.
Okay, this is just a minor amendment. Whereas the consultation details in document 3 for the report zoning bylaw amendment, 3055 Richmond Road, report contains some but not all consultation details for the report, and therefore be it resolved that the Planning and Housing Committee accept the updated report with all consultation details that have been received and forward to council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kavanaugh. So questions of staff?
Thank you, Chair, and appreciate that this is being raised. It's been a long time coming. We did the consultation more than 2 years ago, and just wanted to address some of the concerns that were raised by the resident in terms of typical concerns about parking and traffic. Is this is pretty typical now with the fact that the parking has been reduced, but I just wanted that to be addressed. And I appreciate the fact that the applicant is saying that there's going to be a car share, which will help in terms of people not needing a car or second car if they have a car. So I don't know if you have any comments on the reduced parking, and there is bike parking as well, 26 spaces, I believe. I don't know if it's totally secure, but anyway, just want to ask you if you'll go over that. Thanks.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. So as the applicant has shared, they did consider, they are including the car sharing space. But of course, through the process, the zoning bylaw amendment, and there is a site plan control application as well, that balance of parking and proximity to transit, et cetera, was considered. The official plan directs that parking is appropriate to be reduced on Main Street corridor. So of course, that was something that was considered. And importantly too, this site is very close to Bayshore, which will have a future O-train station. And also Richmond Road actually also has bus routes. So it does have both frequent and local bus routes. So considering all this together, as well as proximity of local streets for, minimal on-street parking, we thought that it was an appropriate balance to reduce that parking on site due to the other options that are available around the site. So Yeah, so we're supportive of that reduction in parking.
Thank you. And the question of green space, can you confirm that mature trees at the rear will be retained and that there'll be additional green space in the rear?
Yeah, so through the site plan control application, we do look at the site in detail. So where mature trees can be preserved, of course, they'll be preserved. Any trees that need to be removed will have to go through the permit process. Our official plan also has the target for 40% canopy. So, we also review that through the site plan control process to ensure that we have that maximized. Through the minimum setback of the rear yard and required amenity space, we have those tools to use and enhance the trees on the site.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kavanaugh. I don't see any further questions from staff, so we'll proceed. Is the amendment carried?
Carried.
Thank you. And is the report as amendment carried?
Carried.
Thank you, colleagues. That is the item. We'll move on. To a combined consideration of items 5.1 and 5.2, the official plan amendment for 4497A and 4497B O'Keefe, along with the South March urban expansion area. I'm anticipating that there might be some procedural discussion. Did you want the, I'll go to our GM.
Thank you, Chair. In your package, you would have seen a letter from Stantec on behalf of the landowner group asking for this to be deferred. That came in late yesterday. We've since had conversations with the South March landowners, and they would like to ask council to defer this item, and we would bring it back in the new year. We'll have some more conversations with them. So while the presentation has been combined, staff have no objection to deferring the item. The only reason the no report recommendation is here is because we're being appealed. So if they want to talk, then we would like to do the same. So we could do the presentation. If you would need a motion to defer that, but we could do the presentation and just focus on the O'Keefe file that is next on the agenda.
Let's get the deferral motion out and carried first then, and then I'd ask staff just to keep that in mind as they make the presentation on the remaining O'Keefe item. Vice Chair?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Mark?
You do have one delegation on South March. I believe it's Mr. Palmer. You may wish to see if he wishes to speak or just have the item deferred.
Yeah. So let's get the deferral item, let's get the deferral motion on the table.
Whereas the applicant has requested this matter be deferred until Q1 2026, therefore be it resolved that the Planning and Housing Committee defer consideration of the official plan amendment South March urban expansion area until a future meeting in Q1 2026. Be it further resolved that staff be permitted to include, if necessary, a revised staff report and/or supporting documentation for inclusion in the distribution of the meeting agenda with appropriate notice being provided.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. So we are now debating deferral of item 5.2, and I'll take our council's direction and go to Mr. Palmer. Mr. Palmer, you signed up as a delegation for the South March item. We are debating deferral at this point. Did you wish to address deferral? Have an opportunity to? You need to unmute yourself, I think. Mr. Palmer, I'll give you just another few seconds here to unmute yourself and just let us know whether you wish to address the deferral that is currently on the table for this item.
Beg your pardon, I couldn't figure out how to do that. Thank you very much. It is a little alarming to me that there will simply be a deferral and talk. What I think that the committee needs to understand is the already pell-mell development along March Road. We already have thousands of new homes being built.
Mr. Palmer, I'm sorry, the rules of our procedure is such that your comments at this point need to be focused on whether or not to defer the item. Do you have any objection or do you support deferral of the item?
I would oppose deferral. I would hope that we would just kill off this amendment, kill off this proposal now, because it is, we don't want to simply say, okay, just tweak a couple things. This needs to be dead. We are choking. We are choking in already on the development that there is, which is not very well done, frankly. It doesn't seem, and so it strikes me that rather than deferring it, we should just kill off this proposal, let them come back in 5 or 10 years, and let the city develop the existing lands that there already are. It's just far too much to try to think, oh, we just need a couple little tweaks. It's not a matter of a few tweaks. We need to have this killed off once and for all, or not once and for all, once in 5 years or 10 years. Come back in 5 or 10 years, but it's already far too much. It's the traffic jams, the infrastructure is not there. And there's a social and emotional toll.
Mr. Palmer, sorry, you're sort of moving into the substance of the item. What I've heard from you is that you would oppose deferral today, have the debate, and in your hope would be that council would support the recommendation for refusal. So I'll end that there, and I'll move on to Councillor Carol.
If I could just, Mr. Leeper, there is a reason for the deferral. Of course, you're getting into substance, but it's that is because it is a very, very important issue that we need to kill off now. This is not a well thought out proposal.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Palmer.
Chair, may I just clarify staff's position on deferral? So we are not changing our position in terms of the no report. But the reason this report came forward now is because the landowners appealed our decision for time from a time perspective. We do not see any urban expansion should come until council has had all of the conversations that will not complete until the first quarter of 2027. So we don't see any urban expansions needing to proceed until that time. So we're not taking a position. We wouldn't be deferring it to try to settle anything. We just think this is premature.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Kelly on deferral.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's, am I able to ask questions of staff currently?
If it helps you determine, once it's focused on.
Yeah, it's focused on deferral. I'm opposed to deferring this item. I don't see why we would be doing that, and so I'd like to ask a few questions of staff on some of that, if that would be okay, Chair.
Sure, but short leash.
Yes. So the applicant is asking for deferral, but it's my understanding that they're appealing the decision based on the fact that the timeline under the Planning Act was not met for this review. Is that the case, that the timeline was not met and that is what they are appealing on?
Chair, the application was deemed complete on April the 8th, as I recall. 120 days after that, they had the statutory right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal, which they did.
Okay. And they're asking for a deferral so that the appeal can be ruled on. I'm not quite sure what the deferral is achieving in this case. If they've already appealed the decision, what is deferral going to do here?
What I received from legal counsel, and others who have read Mr. Willis's letter may wish to add to it, they wish to have the possibility of discussions with the city. So that is what was communicated to me by legal counsel for South March.
And I would imagine that there's already been discussions that have taken place as part of this application.
So, Mr. Chair, I would add to Mr. Merck's comments that the reason why they're requesting deferral is because the results of the growth management strategy in Q1 2026 may alter their decision point on whether they wish to proceed with an appeal on this file or not.
Okay. And then, so I guess my next question would be, this is supposed to go to the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee tomorrow. How would this work if this was deferred here today? Would another deferral motion need to be brought to the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee tomorrow? And just, can you help me figure out what this looks like in terms of procedure for tomorrow's meeting and what a decision that ARAC would do if it was different from the decision here today?
Mr. Chair, there would have to be a deferral motion at ARAC tomorrow. And in the event of contradictory motions from Planning and Housing Committee and Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, council, of course, would decide.
Okay. Well, those are my questions. Thank you for the leash, Mr. Chair. I will just say that I was very excited about the staff recommendation here. And so I'm absolutely opposed to deferral. I don't see any reason to do that. I think staff have put a lot of time and energy into this review and did a great job in doing so. And I think this might have been the first review that they undertook as part of the new model where people can just, or developers can just apply for urban boundary or village boundary expansions whenever they feel like it, outside of a comprehensive review by staff. So want to thank staff for the time and energy that they've put into this, and urge my colleagues to vote against deferral. There's absolutely no reason to do that. Just like there's no reason for further incursions into rural Ottawa with suburban sprawl. We can accommodate the population within our urban boundary, which has been mentioned many, many times at this committee. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Brockington.
Chair and colleagues, I'll just add, I can't recall a time where a request for a deferral was refused. We're responding to an application that was submitted. It's been vetted through our planning department. And yes, we're ready to have a decision here. But if the applicant is requesting a deferral, I'm not sure why we would refuse that request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Vice Chair.
Thank you. For staff, would granting a deferral or not granting a deferral make any difference to how we approach the case in front of the tribunal? Like, if we don't grant a deferral, does that disadvantage us at the tribunal anyway?
So there, Mr. Chair, I sensed a policy question at the start of the Vice Chair's question, and I would invite planning to respond to it. As with respect to before the tribunal, no, I don't see any negative impact one way or the other way, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And in general, this committee and our council has been clear that we do not want to see any urban expansion ahead of a formal process. I just would like staff again to articulate how a deferral, or if a deferral, how a deferral would help support that general direction that committee and council has taken.
Mr. Chair, it really depends on the results of the growth management strategy in Q1 2026. There could be one scenario where additional land is required, in which case we would have to score where those candidate lands would be, and that would include the subject lands, and then the subject lands may come ahead to be one of the prime candidate lands. So that might change the staff position on the file. Really depends on the nature of the work and the results of the growth management strategy.
I suppose whatever staff come back with in Q1, committee still has the ability to agree or disagree. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Can I just add to that, Chair, with your indulgence? I see this delay as an opportunity for the landowners to decide if they still want to appeal. I see nothing changing in terms of facts on the ground as that would change our opinion until 2027. We will continue to write no reports on urban expansion until we have different data and direction from council that urban expansion is necessary.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I don't see any other questions on deferral. Could I get a vote on deferral, please, Kelly?
Counselor Brockington,
Yes.
Counselor Curry, Counselor Dudas,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
No.
Counselor Kitts,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Tierney, Counselor Troster,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Gower,
Yes.
Chair,
Yes.
9 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay, so this item is deferred, sorry, until a future meeting Q1 2026. So I would ask staff as we move through to keep in mind with your presentation, modify on the fly if you can. And I believe Councillor Curry is now no longer conflicted on the items, so full participation, Kathy. Let's move into the staff presentation.
Good morning, Chair, member of Planning Committee. My name is Stream Shan, and I am the file lead for the South March portion. But unfortunately, you're stuck with me as we prepare the joint presentation for the first part. I'm here with my colleague Melanie Gervais, who's the file lead for the O'Keefe application. So we're before you today to go through the official plan amendment for the 4497 O'Keefe Court urban expansion area. Next slide, please. The O'Keefe application was submitted in October of 2024, and as staff was working through the application, it was appealed for lack of decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Therefore, staff is before committee today to provide a recommendation on the application, which include a recommendation for staff to defend the city's position before the Ontario Land Tribunal. Next slide, please. You would have seen this previously, but the city is currently undertaking the official plan growth projection update. It all started in October of 2024 when the province introduced the new provincial planning statement, of which there are two major changes that impacted these applications. First of all, the Ministry of Finance population projection is now to be the basis to determine municipal level housing projection at the time of an official plan update. However, before that happens, the growth projection within the city's current official plan is the basis to determine land need. And this is the way we're evaluating the privately initiated application. And secondly, the new PPS also provide the ability for applicant to submit privately initiated urban expansion application, whereas previously they were all considered as part of a city-initiated comprehensive official plan review process. Staff kicked off the growth projection process in June of this year and have worked diligently in moving the process along, including bringing forward the vacant greenfield residential land survey to this committee in October. And later this week, staff will bring forward the rural residential land survey before the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. Next slide, please. In January 2026, staff will bring forward recommendation for growth projection at a joint committee meeting, to be followed by growth management update, determination of whether settlement area land is required, and if required, settlement area expansion scoring criteria, and the ultimate scoring of expansion lands. It is expected the process will wrap up in Q2 of 2027, when staff will bring full recommendation for the updated growth projection official plan amendment to a joint committee and council. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll pass it off to my colleague Melanie to discuss the council approved process for privately initiated urban boundary expansion applications.
Thank you, Stream. On October 16th, 2024, Council approved a new process to review and evaluate urban boundary expansion applications, which includes the following 5-step evaluation process. The objective of steps 1 and 2 is to assess the capacity and identify requirements for new and/or upgrades to off-site trunk water and trunk wastewater infrastructure. Step 3 is to determine whether the city currently has enough land for future residential development for the next 15 years. Step 4, which should only be completed if land need is determined to be required in Step 3, rates all potential parcels and selects the best parcels that meet identified criteria that conform to the PPS, which includes potential transit ridership, most efficient and cost-effective water and wastewater infrastructure, integration and connectivity to existing community, proximity to existing services and amenities, and avoidance of agricultural resource area and other environmental conflicts. Next slide, please. We had initially included this slide at the beginning since it would apply to both applications, but we cannot change the order of the slides, so we will speak to the land need right now. The mid-2024 Greenfield Residential Land Survey, which was received at Planning and Housing Committee on October 1st, concluded that based on current official plan growth projection, the applicable 15-year timeframe requires 1,268 net hectares. As of July 1st, 2024, the designated and available Greenfield residential supply consisted of approximately 1,582 net hectares, or 18.7 years of supply. This alone is enough to meet the PPS requirement. There's also an additional 339 net hectares of residential land on future neighborhood expansion areas that will be added to the mid-2025 count as these lands became eligible for PPS supply after July 1st, 2024. The 339 hectares will increase the land supply to almost 25 years of supply. Therefore, the need for additional land has not been demonstrated. And given that there is no land need at this time, any privately initiated urban expansion is considered premature. However, we will go over the specifics for the O'Keefe application. Next slide, please. The O'Keefe Court Urban Boundary Expansion OPA was deemed incomplete in November 2024 because steps 1 and 2 had not been completed. The applicant then submitted an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The Ontario Land Tribunal rendered their decision on May 8th, 2025, and deemed the application complete as of November 29th, 2024. The applicant filed another appeal on May 21st, 2025 for lack of decision, as more than 120 days had automatically passed since November 29th, 2024. This report is therefore required to obtain council direction for the OLT hearing scheduled for June 2026. Next slide, please. The subject lands are 72 hectares in size and are located east of Highway 416, north of O'Keefe Court, and west of Cedarview Road. The site is currently vacant and includes an abandoned quarry, provincially significant wetlands, a significant woodland, and a hydro corridor that bisects the two properties. The surrounding land uses include a rural estate lot subdivision to the east, with greenbelt lands further east, Lytle Park and a rural industrial parcel to the south, with urban development further south. The Highway 416 to the west, with rural industrial uses and aggregate uses further west. And lastly, the Highway 416 to the north, with greenbelt lands further north. Next slide, please. In accordance with the PPS, the applicant is requesting to expand the urban boundary outside of a comprehensive review or official plan update. The application proposes to redesignate the lands from rural countryside under the Rural Transact to neighborhood under the Suburban Transact and create an area-specific policy in Volume 2C to permit heights up to 6 stories. The proposal would include a total of approximately 1,493 new residential units, being 675 detached and townhouse dwellings and 818 apartment dwelling units, with building heights between 2 and 6 stories. The proposal also includes a mixed-use area that is envisioned to include mid-rise mixed-use buildings. Next slide, please. The city's analysis in Step 1 confirmed that there is no existing or planned capacity to supply the proposed expansion lands via the central drinking water system. An estimated $31.5 million in off-site upgrades to the city's central drinking water system is required to deliver capacity to the site's edge. This amount reflects only the off-site works needed to make city water available at the property line of the subject area. For wastewater, while Step 1 confirmed that no upgrades to the central sewer systems are required, The nearest available trunk connection is approximately 2 kilometers away. To reach that point and bring sewer capacity to the property line, roughly 2 kilometers of local sewers would need to be installed within Strandherd Drive at an estimated cost of $12 million. These costs are exclusively off-site and limited to water and wastewater. They do not include any on-site local water and wastewater servicing or other infrastructure such as stormwater, roads, or utilities. Those would be defined through the secondary planning process and subsequent development applications. Concerning step 3, as mentioned earlier, it was confirmed that there's almost 25 years of supply, and therefore the need for additional land has not been demonstrated. Next slide, please. The settlement area parcel analysis, which is step 4, should only be completed if step 3 determines that land need is required. However, the same parcels were previously scored in the 2021 Growth Management Report, and it's not anticipated that the results would be substantially different if the scoring was redone today. The O'Keefe Court area was comprised of 2 clusters, and the parcels within those clusters that are subject to this application had a range of overall scores from 17 to 22. None of the parcels and clusters met the minimum transit score of 2, nor the minimum servicing score of 14, nor the minimum overall score of 30, and were recommended as Category 2, assessed, not recommended. The location of the subject lands shown in the hatched area does not represent a phased progression of urban development. The subject lands leapfrog over an adjacent estate lot subdivision in the rural area to the east, and they are also adjacent to a rural industrial parcel to the south with an active site plan control application for 3 industrial buildings that does not include provisions for another future road connection. Therefore, an urban boundary expansion for the subject lands would create an urban island surrounded by rural lands with inadequate road connections, as a development of this size should have multiple access roads to meet emergency services requirements and reduce traffic congestion. Next slide, please. When lands are added to the urban boundary, they are typically added with a future neighborhood overlay, which requires a comprehensive secondary planning process before the overlay is lifted, and therefore applications and development applications can be submitted. This secondary planning process provides a high-level review of subject lands and how they interact with the adjacent lands to ensure appropriate servicing, proper distribution of densities, commercial, institutional, parks, and open space, adequate road network layout, and ensures environmental protection areas are identified and protected. This process also provides an opportunity for community engagement, which is a fundamental part of the secondary planning process, as it helps to inform and shape the final land use plan for neighborhood. This application is not requesting the future neighborhood overlay, which would create gaps to ensure proper planning. Next slide, please. The subject lands do not meet the test for an urban boundary expansion, as it's not consistent with the PPS. It does not conform to the official plan, and the land need hasn't been demonstrated. It's an enclave surrounded by greenbelt and rural lands, and there are other lands that are better suited to take on the approximately 1,500 units with greater connectivity and more cost-effective servicing. Therefore, staff recommend that Planning and Housing Committee recommend Council refuse the OPA to bring the subject lands into the urban boundary, and recommend Council direct staff to defend the city's position at the OLT. Thank you.
Thank you very much to staff for all of that work. There are a couple of public delegations, and then we can go to the applicant team if they choose to take the time. Audrey Chapman is with the Cedar Hill Community Association. So come on up to the microphone, and you'll have 5 minutes to make a presentation to the committee, and you'd be followed by Amanda Brewster, who would also have 5 minutes to make a presentation to the committee. Our staff will make sure your microphone is on. And whenever you're ready, Ms. Brewster.
Just for clarification, good morning, Mr. Chair and councillors. Amanda is supporting me today, but she is back there. She won't be presenting.
Thank you for letting me know. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Audrey Chapman, and I'm here with Amanda Brewster. We are here on behalf of the Cedar Hill Community Association, of which we are both board members. We are speaking in opposition to Matamy's request to rezone the subject lands from rural to urban. The Matamy land is a landlocked pocket of rural property, bordered by 3 existing rural communities and a rural industrial parcel. When the abutting subdivisions were created, the former city of Nepean determined that the underlying bedrock made them unsuitable and too costly to construct full municipal servicing. For that reason, this area remained rural. The adjacent Matamy parcel shares some of these characteristics. It's important to note that the city has already approved a prior Matamy plan to develop this land as a rural community, a plan that fits well with its neighboring communities. Residents were consulted on that proposal and support it. Given today's rising infrastructure costs, reduced immigration, a slowing housing market, and most importantly for Ottawa, public service job cuts coming, it's not prudent to convert this particular rural parcel into a costly, isolated urban subdivision far from public transit and major infrastructure. The site is simply not appropriate for urban expansion. It's completely surrounded by rural properties. Of great significance is that it has no direct access to an arterial road, only one possible rural entry and exit road. The proposed southern access to O'Keefe Court crosses privately owned land. As noted, there is an active site plan control application for a warehouse, which does not include provisions for the future road connection. The area has no cost-effective connection to municipal water, wastewater systems. Extending and upgrading this infrastructure would be enormously expensive and would disrupt the community. It's far from existing and planned transit, meaning ongoing costs to taxpayers for future transit service. By contrast, the approved rural draft plan would require no major off-site infrastructure, create minimal disruption, and respect the area's rural heritage character. Independent engineering studies have confirmed that the significant off-site upgrades would be needed to bring water and wastewater infrastructure to the Matamy lands. These upgrades would tear up recently completed infrastructure and at great expense and disruption. The area's water supply, known as 3SW, is near capacity to meet existing approved needs, including the Canada Food Inspection Agency's major expansion nearby. Adding Matamy's proposed development would stretch this system beyond limits. Given the region's low-lying terrain, additional paved services would worsen stormwater runoff and flood risks, creating potential public health and safety issues for the nearby communities. As noted, Matamy lands include provincially protected wetlands. Matamy's own environmental impact study acknowledges that multiple federal and provincial permits would be required to disturb nearby lands. No permits granting permission have been filed. Urbanizing this area would permanently alter the rural character and put surrounding wetlands, wildlife, and the mature tree canopy at risk. The financial risk must not be glossed over. The off-site infrastructure cost alone is estimated at $38.1 million, and there's no written commitment from Matamy to cover its 95% share of those costs. The taxpayer should not be expected to subsidize a development that is unnecessary, impractical, costly, environmentally damaging, especially when the city has more than enough, more appropriate land already identified to be brought into the urban boundary to meet the future needs. In summary, it appears that the Matamy proposal has failed tests of good planning. It's not necessary, isolated, costly, environmentally risky, and contradicts the city's own planning principles. Leaving the land as rural is the most fiscally responsible and sound environmentally and community-supported path forward. Given the above, we urge that the committee here deny Matamy's request. Thank you for your time and consideration. Oh, and to my oral comments, I did submit just some supplementary additional detail in a written submission that you will have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chapman. I'll see if there are any questions for you from committee members, of which I don't see any. So thank you very much for the delegation today. I'm going to guess that the applicant team would like to make a few comments. Come on down. Yeah, we'll get that up on screen for you. Thank you very much. And whenever that's up and ready, we're ready for your presentation.
Maybe go to the next slide just for convenience. Good morning. I'm Miguel Tremblay. I'm a partner at FOTEN, and I'm here with Paul Black, a principal at FOTEN and the file lead for Mattamy. As you are aware, we submitted some written comments to the committee yesterday. So Paul and I will only make really general high-level comments related only to the O'Keefe Cedar View applications. Once we completed step 1 and 2, Mattamy through FOTEN submitted an official plan amendment to expand the urban boundary by 72 hectares to apply a neighborhood designation. And as you heard, without the need for a secondary plan. Mattamy is the only property owner here and controls all of the lands. And we saw no need for a secondary plan, given that we can and have submitted a zoning bylaw amendment and a plan of subdivision application. The intent of the official plan is to allow anywhere from 1,400 to 1,500 units with a mix of single detached townhouses and, as you heard, up to 6-story apartment buildings, all with an effort to create a complete community. I'll just leave you with a few points, maybe in contrast to some of the comments made in the staff report. The PPS does allow Mattamy to submit an expansion application outside of the comprehensive review. The OLT deemed the application complete, as you heard, in May 2025, and council is required to consider these applications. There's a criteria that's outlined in the provincial policy statement, as well as your staff report, that these decisions should be made based on a need to designate additional lands to support a range of uses and typologies, confirm that there is sufficient servicing capacity, and to allow the orderly and phased urban expansions. There are other criteria, but they're less relevant here, and we won't focus on those. But as you heard, the city is expected to protect for a 15-year supply. This is a minimum as identified in the PPS. It's not a maximum and it's not an absolute target. The intent of having it as a minimum is that it provides flexibility and buffering in case that some of the other lands in the inventory don't come online for reasons of constraint, marketing considerations, or ownership. And I would think it would be short-sighted for the city to limit themselves to the minimum related to an expansion, knowing that some of these other lands may not come online in a timely basis. Having said that, we have, in support of this application, done an analysis of the projections based on the Minister of Finance projections. The city is working towards that objective, and we understand that. But in our scenario that we prepared for the application in our planning rationale, we expect that the city will ultimately require urban boundary expansions, and we are of the opinion that the Mattamy lands are very well suited, and that's the second point. Maybe next slide, if you wouldn't mind. From a physical context, these lands are actually strategically located. Despite the graphics shown, they are abutting the urban boundary to the north, separated only by Highway 416, which would form a natural edge to our urban boundary limits. They are in proximity to urban and suburban subdivisions to the south. They're in proximity to employment areas, including Citygate and O'Keefe business parks. They are in proximity to commercial nodes, including the Trinity development that Paul did, and that includes the Costco food store, amenities and the Greenbelt, city services, soft services like fire stations and libraries and everything else, and has excellent highway access. Despite the notions in the staff report, roads and transit can respond to the intensification of these lands. They can be designed and built to urban standards, allowing for transit loops and extensions from the business parks and the commercial areas that are in very close proximity. The staff report, for instance, highlights that there's no sidewalks on O'Keefe and Onassis. Well, these are rural neighbors. And as part of a subdivision and zoning process, these facilities would be expanded and you would see municipal sidewalks and all of the other infrastructure to support an urban subdivision. But recall that these lands are already designated and zoned for residential. This is essentially an intensification play in that there's already 88 country estate lots on municipal water. They already have municipal water. This is essentially an intensification. And in our opinion, an urban community is a better use of land with a broader range of densities and contributes to a more complete community. There was a previous review of these lands as part of the 2022 OP review, and they scored 20. But our analysis and our planning rationale is that they were misscored and should have actually scored closer to 70 out of 90 for a range of reasons. And these would actually been an excellent candidate as part of the previous OP review. But the important point is that these lands can actually be developed now in contrast to some of the other lands within that inventory with minimal servicing interventions. Despite the presentation, there are servicing options that would mitigate for those costs that were identified in the report. There are other ways to service these lands. Lastly, the aggregate impact issue has been mitigated and all the development lands are well outside 500 meters. And I'm not going to get into the details, but the short answer is the province has created a legislative framework that allows you to consider these expansions. We think they're well suited for an expansion candidate, and we'd encourage you to reconsider your recommendation at the OLT. Thank you.
Thank you very, excuse me. Thank you very much, Councillor Kitts.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand the dispute between your position and staff's is adequate servicing, including a cost of 31 million to upgrade the drinking water system. So is that a cost Mattamy is willing to absorb? This goes forward.
So I think it's important to note, so we went through step 1 and step 2 of the city's process for urban boundary expansions, and the city's own report notes an upgrade to the water main, but also states that alternative servicing options are available, which would be on-site mitigation. So those include adjusting grading, on-site pressure boosting, building height limitations, oversizing services. So that's the city's own report that provides alternatives. Our engineering consultant has confirmed the same, that there are alternatives to upgrading the water main that would be part of a typical subdivision process that wouldn't require that upgrade to the water main.
Okay, I can ask staff about that. And then the other major issue I see is that there's a connector road required to connect the lands to the south that are not under Mattamy's ownership. What's the plan for that?
I mean, the short answer is the city has consistently fought these applications, didn't want to deem them complete. We're having to incrementally get ourselves there. As part of this process, they will negotiate with the properties group who owns the lands, and they will secure the road if they get to the point where there's an appetite for this expansion. I mean, that's typical.
I'm smiling because I do agree it's typical, but there was land in my area that came to a full stop because of that, the developer not being able to acquire land that was needed for a road. So.
Well, and that's a consequence to Mattamy if they're unable to secure the road, but it kind of reinforces my other point that all of the other lands that you're speaking to that are in your 15-year inventory may have constraints. And that's why it's, I think, ill-advised for the city to say, we've hit 15, we're stopping. I think that's a very fragile position.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
I take your point that 15 year is a minimum, not a specific target. Are there downsides? Could there be any downsides to having too much land available?
Too much housing? I'm gonna say no, in that most of these expansion areas, the cost of servicing these are at their cost. And if there is no demand for those lands, then they wouldn't build them and those lands wouldn't actually come online. But again, like, as we know, it could come down to reasons of ownership or timing or marketing that these other lands don't come online. And I don't think it's a cautious approach for the city to not elevate that target somewhat, given that and it's not my point, it's the PPS's direction, that this is a minimum.
Well, where do we stop then? Like, why not just designate everything as greenfield?
I think you have criteria as to how to evaluate these lands. I think the point that we're making is these actually are very good lands. There may be other lands that somebody may want to designate, but actually aren't well suited. They're on different types of land uses. They're not in reasonable proximity to food stores and have potential for transit loops. They're not near employment. Our point is these lands are actually really good lands. We felt back in 2022 that the city misscored them. And I still think the city is misevaluating how important and successful these lands can be to contribute to your urban growth program.
Okay, thank you. Make sure.
Thanks, Councillor Kavanaugh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. One of the issues was transit score, which was very low. And there is nothing nearby, and that it would require, if we want to have people not in cars, then we want transit. How do you get around that one? And is Madam E willing to pay into that?
So maybe just first a general comment. I don't know, Paul, if you want to add to it, but because we're not the transportation consultant, but the city evaluating rural lands for candidate sites and then determining that there's inadequate transit seems ill-founded, if you will. I think what the city needs to look at is, are there opportunities to upgrade or connect into the transit system? This is a 72 hectares of vacant land. I'm pretty sure there is no transit to these lands, and nor should there be. But if Mattamy is allowed to develop 1,400 units or 1,500 units, then there's an obvious opportunity to loop. These business parks are 2 kilometers away, and they are the largest business parks in the southwest area of the city. So there's ample opportunity to loop bus service into these business parks, into the commercial areas. Right now, there's no reason to, and it seems kind of silly to me that we're evaluating it based on that notion. Paul, if you have any.
Yeah, I'll just add in the scoring in 2022, and then again in our planning run supporting documents for this application. I mean, it's been demonstrated and suggested several ways that transit could be provided to these lands. Obviously, local transit connection. We're not talking about extending the LRT to these lands. We're talking about local bus service that can get people to the transitway in a reasonable amount of time so that they can get to the rapid transit network, but also the local transit network providing connections to employment and services, as Miguel mentioned. So it has been a consideration, and we do think it's easily achieved on these lands.
Thank you. I think the average taxpayer is concerned about how much it would cost in terms of just all these amenities, all these infrastructure, pardon me, that is needed for something in this area. But I have to admit, there's a certain irony here when Taywin is pretty much the same, and yet we accepted that. I can't help but laugh when I read the reports. It could have been written for Taywin. But anyway, I trust our staff. The scoring is important. We do need expansion lands eventually, but we have to look at the overall cost. And anyway, that's what's important as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kavanaugh. I don't see any further questions from members for the delegation. Thanks for your intervention today. The opportunity is now for questions to staff.
Thank you, Chair. And I will also refer to the elephant in the room that Councillor Kavanaugh did. From your perspective, how did these lands compare to Taywin, which we previously approved in terms of all of those scoring factors, including access to utilities and to transit?
Counselor, we're not in a position to comment on Taywin because we don't work in that area and we weren't engaged in the file. So I'll defer over to Royce and Marcia if they wish to handle that one. But for our South planning team, that's out of our scope.
So, Chair, as a reminder, Taywin was not scored to the same effect that these lands were during the official plan review. So to do an apples to apples comparison on the scores is not available because Taywin was not scored. It was brought in through council direction.
Okay. Well, the irony is not lost on me. I mean, I was not a member of council when Taywin was chosen, but I'm aware that it was scored lower by staff and then council opted to move forward. So, I oppose yeah, anyway, I don't think we need more sprawl. I worry about endless expansion, but I'm also aware of this contradiction that we're living with right now, that we're rejecting these applications, which may actually be closer to some of these services than Taywin is. Nonetheless, I'll support the staff recommendation at this point because I don't think we need even more sprawl, but you know, this was ultimately a political decision that council made and we're going to be paying for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just clarify, Taywin wasn't scored lower. It wasn't scored, but yeah. My question, we deferred the last item partly because we will be contemplating new growth projections in January 2026. So I'm wondering why we wouldn't defer this item for the same reason.
Mr. Chair, this one is actually scheduled for a hearing for 5 weeks, beginning June 1. South March is not so scheduled.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And then on the applicant saying that there are alternate solutions to the water main. Oh, just looking for a staff comment on that.
So as it was noted in the report, so although the construction will be borne by the applicant, there is maintenance and replacement costs that are, post-development that would fall to the taxpayer. And we didn't think that it was financially viable to proceed in that way. I do believe we have Sue Johns online if you have specifics that you could clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are alternatives to lots of servicing plans. So when the proponent indicates that they have investigated other, and staff has as well, if this were to proceed, we certainly will examine engineering at a much more fine level of detail to be able to come to an approved plan if that's council's wish.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. And if I could just ask staff to bring the mic a little closer to themselves, would be great. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Curry.
Yeah, I just have one question really on this file about the transit comments and conversation. I mean, I'll just give you some information that, we have Canada's largest tech park in Canada North. I don't know if you know that, but, 700 companies, 60,000 jobs. We can't get a bus to the tech park. So this has been in existence for many, many, many years, decades, and we still do not have good transit to the Canada North Tech Park. So you look at a new development, you think, oh, right, it's great for transit, and we'll just need to get some buses. So my question to staff is, do we ever ask OC Transpo, what would that actually look like for you to get adequate transit? If there's these great business parks there, wonderful to hear. But what would that look like? What is the cost? When would that happen? Do we ever get a fulsome comment from OC Transpo shows our current $37 million deficit, our lack of stage 3, upload that we're wondering about? Do we ever get that when we look at these decisions?
Chair and Councillor, thank you for the question. I think, again, if this application were to progress further, those items would have been looked at in detail. But really, the threshold for analyzing these projects were more high level. So our transportation team did come in and really felt that that transit was not available in the vicinity and that it was not a logical progression of development for that reason. So I'm not sure how deeply that transportation was explored. We do have a transportation planner here today that I could call on if we wanted to ask some specifics around that.
Chair, I could add some context as well. The scoring criteria that council had endorsed was based on availability of higher order transit. So it was proximity to LRT in the efforts to achieve our 5 big moves of the official plan. So while there was discussion on the ability to connect to transit through local bus, etc., that is not the criteria the council had established. For expansion parcels, it was proximity to higher order transit, full stop.
Fascinating. We're all listening to that. That's what the criteria was set by council, right? I mean, we look at a development in Canada, Arcadia. It's been around for 10 years up by Tanger Mall. We only just got the very first bus this year to that development. It's fully built out. We finally got one bus after 10 years. So, I mean, I tell you, maybe we need to change our criteria when these things happen, because, Councillor Kitt says, almost every meeting about always the cart coming before the horse, that we don't fully understand what it looks like when we do these types of expansions, and then later on go, oh, wow, wouldn't it be nice if we had a bus? And we say that for 10 years. So I would not I'm supporting the staff recommendation here, obviously, but I think we have more work to do in terms of our criteria as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. What do staff envision the medium to long-term use of this property to be? Well, what do we envision it to be used other than the current purposes, which is completely underutilized, other than being, as the staff report says, woodland and marshland and just vacant land? Do we have a vision for this property at some point?
Thank you for the question. We do actually have a draft approved subdivision for this rural estate lots. So it's very similar to what we see now, just to the east. So that's what we would be envisioning.
And when a development is proposed and there are known municipal infrastructure improvements that need to be made, either augmentations to existing or brand new infrastructure, how do we determine how much is paid for by the developer versus how much is paid for by the city?
Mr. Chair, if Sue John's the Director of Asset Management, could comment on that response?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When council approves development through the official plan, and our regular process is that we identify infrastructure needs, we just identified for the new official plan through the infrastructure master plan. Those trunk level backbone services then progress into the development charges bylaw, where the analysis is done to apportion costs. In cases like this, where we'll have site-specific costs not included in the development charge, there would be analysis using those same principles of cost sharing that we apply to determine what is a local benefit and what is a community benefit. So that will be new processes if an urban expansion were to proceed, because certainly we have not done that before. But there will be steps to determine cost apportionment based on the benefit that is accrued to the lands related to the new infrastructure.
Thank you for that. So just as an example, in the staff report, it says upgrades to the city's drinking water system is required at a cost of 31.5 million. Would staff need to do further analysis based on your answer about what portion of that cost would be billed to the developer versus what would be paid for by the city?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. At a very high level, those changes are not contemplated for any other reason than this expansion at this time. The further analysis would identify if there is other benefits to the community, but at a very high level, it would be 95% attributable to these lands and probably 5% to the community, because there could be some ancillary benefit to the community. At a high level, that would be my estimation today.
Okay, I appreciate that. I only know this property because my daughter started playing soccer in the park that's off O'Keefe Court. So I'm not an expert in the area, and I appreciate the community association coming out today to give us additional context. I think there are some positives on the location of this property, whether it's highway location or location to the commercial districts in the immediate area. I do want to respect the staff recommendation at the time, but also we are in a housing and homelessness emergency. And if there's a developer willing to build 1,400 units, I'm open to a conversation. So I may be swayed between now and council, but at this time, I'm leaning towards supporting the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brockington. Councillor Kavanagh?
Thank you very much. Just to make it clear that I trust the staff recommendation when you do an analysis, because this is about climate change as well, that we don't want sprawl, we don't want more cars on the road, because the transit is obviously very weak on this. And I think that if we had listened to staff earlier, I'm going to repeat it. Taywin would not be on the table at all. And that's what staff had said earlier. But I just wanted to make it clear that I trust the analysis that that is for these, and appreciate the work that's done by staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanaugh. Councillor Lowe?
Thanks. Want to follow up on one of the comments that Sue, if she's still online, had made about possible ancillary benefits to the existing community. My familiarity with that area is that the suburban context in that area was built, I think, in the last 10 years, while Cedar Hill is on. I want to hazard a guess and say that it's on well and septic. Do staff anticipate any, at a high level, do staff anticipate any ancillary benefit to the existing community if the upgrades to the water main were to be pursued?
Mr. Chair, in the work that staff have done in completing the step 1 and step 2 assessment of the expansion, we are talking about 2 different pressure zones for the water system that extend as far over as the Barrhaven pump station within Councillor Lowe's ward. So it is at this high level, we do attribute a small percentage, 5%, that would contribute to the resilience and redundancy of the existing system. It is not something that we have planned improvements to do. It's more taking this proposal into consideration.
Okay, thanks very much. Second question, I was pulled away for a few seconds there earlier. Has the developer indicated any sort of development horizon timeline if this goes ahead?
Thank you for the question. I would have to verify with them.
Okay, thanks.
That might be something productive to bring up directly with them before we vote at council, if councillors are curious. Vice Chair Gower?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to offer my opinion that there is definitely an impact to approving greenfield development, expanding the urban boundary beyond the maximum, beyond the minimum. My example in Stittsville would be we have 238 hectares of land available to be developed, and that's not counting a new piece of expansion land that was approved through the 2021 official plan process. The land that is already designated for expansion is over 11,000 homes. That's years and years of homes. But where that land is located is, if it could be developed quickly, it would allow us to complete existing road connections that are disconnected now. It would allow us to put people living in a way that's more conducive to transit, because we can bring higher densities to land where transit routes already exist. Right now, we're sending transit through roads without any homes on either side of it. Development has leapfrogged into areas ahead of where it should have. I have no doubt that this piece of land that we're talking about will be developed someday, but that can happen in the future once we've already filled in the land that's available for development now. And I think if we get too far ahead of ourselves in designating too much land, we're going to have more of this leapfrogging development, and it's expensive to maintain for the city. It creates all sorts of disjointed roads and connections in our neighborhood. So we have a process that we've decided we're going to follow to determine where we need to expand and develop next, and we need to follow that process. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councillor Kitts?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to need a little bit of latitude here, but just because it keeps getting mentioned today, I wanted to explain something that doesn't seem to be well understood. So when we contemplated the growth management strategy, staff recommended we approve Category 1 lands, which were scored, and then council had a decision to make. We can go for Category 2 lands, which were scored and are basically what we're contemplating today. Pieces spread out across the city that have challenges with servicing, with transit, etc. Or we could move forward with Taywin, which is concentrated. Instead of sprinkling it around all of the city, it was a concentrated area. So there seems to be some misinformation about how that all played out. So I just wanted to reiterate that that is how we came to the decision of Taywin. It wasn't A, B, C. It was category 1, and then we had 2 decisions to make. And as you're seeing, there are challenges with parcels spread across the city as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kitts. I don't see any further questions of staff. Thank you very much for the work that you've done on this. I will just echo Vice Chair Gower's comments. I couldn't say those better myself. Part of building an affordable city is to make sure that as we expand, the parcels that we add are the ones that are the least costly for those future taxpayers. And we don't necessarily know today which parcels those are in advance of completing the staff process for looking more comprehensively at which parcels to add if we do in fact need to add more land, which I suspect most people don't disagree with. So I would like to continue to support staff in that comprehensive and holistic exercise rather than continue to be forced down this path that the province has done with the legislation that has created some chaos in planning across Ontario. So my urging to members would be to support the staff recommendation. And with that said, I don't think we have any amending motions or anything on this one. So it is a vote on the staff recommendation to refuse the official plan amendment and direct staff to defend the city's position at the Ontario Land Tribunal. Is that carried?
Carried.
Sorry? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. I believe that is the substantive agenda. So we'll move to the notices of motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting. Are there any notices of motion? Yeah, I've got them. We'll get to that one in just a moment. I promise. Are there any inquiries? Other business, there is a motion to add to the agenda from Vice Chair Gower. Vice Chair Gower, the floor is yours.
Yeah, seeking council support to add an item to the agenda relating to signage at the Stittsville Lions Club on Stittsville Main Street.
So is that added for consideration?
For today, if we can.
For today?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that carried?
Carried.
The agenda, thank you. Vice Chair.
I'll read just the therefore be it resolved that Planning and Housing Committee recommend council approve exemptions to Table 1A of the permanent signs on private property bylaw 2016-326 as amended to allow the installation of a digital message center in a TM zone. The maximum height of a ground sign in a TM zone to be 5.18 meters. The minimum side yard setback for a ground sign to be equal to 0.75 meters. And be it further resolved that the fees for minor sign variance totaling $2,330 be waived. And this is for the property at 1339 Stittsville Main Street. And this would allow this to go to council next week so we can meet some timelines for installation for the Lions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? I'll just pose a quick question of my own to staff. Are staff supportive of this or have any objections to this?
Chair, staff is supportive.
Thank you. Members, is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Chair, for bringing that. We are adjourned until our next meeting, which will be on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. Thank you very much, everyone.